our members of the board of secretaries.
It's my pleasure to be here tonight with all of you.
As you know, we are looking for the best of the best, and we want the best qualified to serve as Secretary of State. We've got 6 questions. You'll have a minute and a half each. And the last question, you'll have 2 minutes. Okay. In your current job, what has been your most noteworthy success?
Well, I think my most noteworthy success is more of a general success, and that is really taking the Bernalillo County Clerk's Office from being a place where, over the years, suffered from problems on election night, problems in terms of conducting elections, and we had a lot of close elections here in New Mexico over the years, and especially in 2000 and 2006, and the spotlight came down on Bernalillo County, and ultimately there was always some process issue, and the ultimate outcome of elections had to be embroiled in legal wrangling. And so when I came into the office, I was very focused on process first and foremost, getting that documented, getting it put into place so that everybody understood what the rules of the game were before the game even started. And then, of course, complying with the law and making sure that we were following the law and ensuring a streamlined voting process for the voters in Bernalillo County. So I'm very proud of that work. It was very hard work, and we brought Bernalillo County, I think, into a great position. And now what we're able to do is we're really able to focus on innovating and pushing forward and doing new and creative things in order to improve the election process. We're doing more to train our poll workers, to train them better, because those are the folks that are working on the front lines. We're doing more to educate and inform voters and give them the tools and information they need to know how, where, and when to cast a ballot. So I'm very proud of all of that on the whole as an accomplishment.
Great, thank you. The integrity of our election system in New Mexico is a key aspect of the job of the New Mexico Secretary of State. What is your view on the issue of voter fraud, and what will you do as Secretary of State to monitor or address it?
Okay, thank you for the question. First and foremost, I agree that voter fraud is a very serious issue, and I have taken it extremely seriously as county clerk. I've been extremely aggressive about pursuing issues pertaining to voter fraud when they've come up during the course of my tenure as clerk. I've referred cases to the FBI. I've worked very closely with the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, and I've even referred potential cases to the current Secretary of State and the previous Secretary of State when it warranted that office's intervention into the situation. And so I always take those issues very seriously, but I do think that voter fraud is only one aspect of election integrity. For example, we need to feel confident as voters that our votes are being counted as they're being cast. And so one of the things that I did as county clerk when I came into office was we piloted the best practices for the audit that is now in place and statutorily required after an election, so that we know that our voting machines were programmed properly, that they counted the votes as cast, so that we can all have faith that the outcome that was reported is the actual outcome of the election. And I also believe that ensuring that I protect the right of every voter in my county and that we protect the right of all voters in New Mexico is absolutely key and crucial to ensuring election integrity. Because if even one voter, eligible citizen, is deprived of the right to vote, then that's one too many for me.
Thank you. New Mexico reportedly has many inactive, deceased, or otherwise invalid registrations on the active voter list. If you agree with that, do you have a plan to address it? And if you disagree, do you believe the statewide voter rolls are accurate as listed?
No, I completely agree that our records tend to be out of date. And a lot of the reason for that is when voters move, they are thinking about making sure that their utility bill is transferred to their new address, or they're getting a driver's license to make sure that they stay compliant there. But they're not always thinking about voting. Voters usually think about voting at election time. They don't necessarily think about it in between. And sometimes they don't get to update that registration in that 28-day beforehand period, that deadline that they're required to do it by. And so they continue to vote, but our records continue to languish and be behind the times. And so I do believe that making sure we have up-to-date records is very important. It's not only important for us as election officials, it's important for the voters so that they can be voting where they live, and they can be voting and electing the representatives that live in their districts. So I believe in achieving a lot of proactive goals in this area. One of the things that I would like to see is a lot more for integrated database sharing, integrated data sharing among state databases as well as with other states, because oftentimes what we see is a voter moves to, say, Texas, and we never bother to hear back from them that they've moved to Texas, and so they stay on the voting rolls, even without voting. And so we need to be sharing that data between states, and we need to be a lot more proactive about how we update that data.
Thank you. Do you support or oppose same-day voter registration in New Mexico? Please explain.
I support it. I have been on the record supporting it in front of the state legislature in the past. And in the past, there were some concerns about not having the technology to be able to prevent, people from maybe registering at one place and then maybe going, across the county and voting somewhere else. And even though they never really saw anything like that happen in the other places that have same-day voter registration, that was still a concern that many people had. And so when we brought ballot-on-demand technology into the polling places, especially in early voting sites, in fact, ballot-on-demand, where you go in and we look you up on the computer and we're able to print your ballot right there for you that corresponds to your precinct, regardless of the polling place that you go to. That really enables us to be able to prevent people from doing that type of thing where they register here and then they go across the county and try to vote somewhere else, right? So I think that once that concern was remediated, and we have the technology to do it, it makes a lot of sense, especially going to your previous question, Carla, because we need those voting records to be up to date, and if voters are only thinking about voting when they're doing the act of voting, in many cases, the perfect place to get them to update their voter registration and so that they're voting in the precinct where they live is same-day voter registration, because that's the perfect opportunity to do it at that time.
Thank you. Do you support or oppose legislation requiring voter identification?
Well, I oppose it, and let me explain why. In all of the potential and real voter fraud cases that we've seen in New Mexico, I'm aware of only one in which a person actually impersonated another voter at the polls. And that happened in my county, in Bernalillo County in 2012. And my poll workers caught the guy in the act. He was pretending to be his son because he, I guess, thought his son wasn't going to make it home in time to vote or something like that. And he was caught, and he was put through the judicial process, and he was sentenced. And that is the appropriate way to handle voter fraud. Voter fraud is a 4th-degree felony. It's a serious crime. We need to treat it seriously. But here's the thing. That's the only case that I'm aware of in which a photo voter ID would have actually prevented this type of behavior from happening. We've seen things that happen with, absentee ballots, things that look suspicious, real and actual voter fraud that's occurred with absentee ballots, voter registration, but none of these things are things that a photo voter ID at the polls would solve. And so I'm very interested in solutions to problems, not problems in search of solutions. All the data that we see is that over the last 14 years and 1 billion votes cast, about 31 cases of in-person voter impersonation have occurred. And what we really have is a voter participation problem, and I don't think we need to be erecting additional barriers to the polling place.
Okay, thank you. You have 2 minutes. Please tell the hiring committee why you believe you are the best candidate to represent the people of New Mexico as Secretary of State.
Thank you for once again, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. It has been my pleasure, Carla. Thank you for the excellent questions. Needless to say, I've served as county clerk in the state's largest county for the last 7.5 years. And I have come to intimately know and understand the election process in the state's largest county. There's so much human factor involved in an election, and you don't realize how much until you actually run an election for the first time. And I have come to understand all the pitfalls and all the things that can arise during the election process, and I've learned how to be a really effective planner. And I've learned how to really effectively respond to problems when they crop up. And I believe that this is the most important role of the chief election officer of the state, is to be able to plan effectively, allocate those resources effectively, and resolve problems as they arise in a quick and effective manner so that the voters of our state all have an equal access to the ballot box and the same experience at the ballot box. So I'm running because I believe very strongly in the right to vote of all New Mexicans and in protecting that right to vote. I believe that my experience as county clerk qualifies me for that eminently, and I really value voter participation and want to continue to foster that provide the tools and technology that voters in our state truly need in order to be able to cast their ballot. And so with that, I ask you all for your support tonight, for your vote on November 4th, and I thank you all very much for the opportunity.